You're listening to the Word of Life podcast, inspiring and informing faith experiences with stories, discussions, interviews, and teaching for a get-in-your-face challenge of your daily walk with God, with your host, Jonathan Phillips.
You know, growing up, whenever I was a kid, I remember saying, hey, there's a monster underneath my bed, or I remember doing that often. I remember flicking off the light and running to my bed and throwing the covers over my head, thinking that there was a monster. Well, for the story of Abigail Joy, who's our guest today, her monster was not fake. Her monster was real. And it was her dad who lived with her, and she had to live through an abuse for many, many years of her life. Now, I know that that's starting out very deep and dark, but I want you to understand that there is hope. There is a lot of hope through this story. God did such incredible things through the life of Abigail and her family. Now, I want you to know now that if you were listening to this podcast as you're going through and you are relating to her story, we don't want you to just click off of the podcast and walk away from it. If you are going through something that she is going through and you have no one to turn to, no friend or family member, I'm saying this in the beginning because I want you to know it and have this in the back of your mind as you're listening to her story, that there is hope in this story and there is hope for you as well. Email us, podcast@wol.org, podcast@wol.org. If you don't want me to read it or Taylor to read it, then just put in the subject line, "This is for Abigail Joy," and we will forward that right to her. Don't sit and do nothing. Hear the story of Abigail Joy, and even if you don't relate to her, you can be praying for the people that are affected by things, because this happens all the time. This is the life story of Abigail Joy. Abigail, I'm so glad that you are here with us.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here too.
Yeah. Now, you have a very interesting story.
I do.
Yeah, and it's crazy. I'll just put it that way. And
you don't even know the half of it.
Oh boy. Okay. Well, having said that, I know that you have, it's a lot, and so I don't want to take any more time of me rambling on. So we'll just jump into it. Tell us who you are, where you're from, and then we'll jump in here and there.
I'm Abigail Joy. I go by my middle name. I prefer it. I'm from New Hampshire. I actually was born in Michigan, so I consider Michigan as my other home state, but I grew up in New Hampshire my entire life. I also want to live in Washington State. Moved to Washington State, Seattle area. It's really pretty out there. Nice.
Now, do you mind me asking the question? I don't know if I'm jumping way ahead, but why is it that you want to go by your middle name?
I am the victim of a lot of severe abuse from my father, and his last name causes a lot of trauma for me. So I prefer to go by my middle name. I'm hoping to someday be able to completely just drop it, because it's a way of healing for me to not be associated with that last name, and it's just a way for me to be able to heal.
I understand. Well, how about you start on your journey and tell us what you're comfortable with, and we'll listen in.
Okay. So I was saved at 5 years old. My parents met when they were at college, and we went to church because that was the required thing back in the 90s. You get pregnant, you get married from a Christian family, and then you go to church. So I've heard the gospel since I was little in Sunday school and church, and I can't explain to you why I got saved that day. It was really, really early in the morning, and I just woke up wanting to get saved. I think it was God stepping ahead and saving me in the end, because if I had gotten saved any later in life, I probably wouldn't be here today. So I woke up really early, and I used to be like a really early bird, and I apologize to my mom now, because now I understand why you sleep in. And I actually, ironically enough, asked my dad how to be saved, and he told me, and I went back to my room and I prayed by myself. And also the other thing too is when I was 6 years old, we stopped going to church till I was 9. So honestly.
Why was that?
My dad's choice. I don't really know. I don't try to go into my dad's thinking very much, but he just stopped. We didn't go. The only way I think I grew from that time was because of my grandmother and the music my mom would play. My mom's a very godly woman, and she would play like all the early 2000 music that I remember hearing, like Michael W. Smith.
Yeah, come on.
Yeah, all that old stuff that yeah.
Hey, watch it now. Don't say the old stuff.
Okay, classic.
I'm in the whole bracket.
Hey, I enjoy that stuff, so It's okay. I remember like second grade hearing that while we were homeschooling. So that's why I think I even grew it all. And then we started going to church again when I was 9. But in between that time, my grandmother got cancer, the one who influenced me. And from what I can remember, the age of 8 to 10, I watched her die of cancer. And around that time, that's when my first memories of my dad's abuse started hitting me. And I remember. So
let me interrupt you real quick.
Okay.
You just said the first memory. Mm-hmm. So that means this has already been happening to where your dad has been abusing you?
We don't actually know. My dad is a court-ordered sociopath. So we think the abuse might have started earlier, but we have no proof of it.
May I ask, just so, and if this is too much, let me know.
Okay.
What type of an abuse are we talking about?
All forms. Okay. Physical, sexual, mental, psychological.
Okay.
He created a Stockholm syndrome in me.
What is that?
Stockholm syndrome is when you get an attachment with your abuser. So you bond with them and you can't live without them. It was so bad that he fed me lies about my mom, and my mom and I weren't close. I never was able to get close with anybody who wasn't him. So we don't know how far back it goes, but my first memories are from the age of 8. So I don't know how I grew during those years, but I think it was the hand of God completely just stepping in and saving my life, as I'll explain when I get down the road.
Yeah. Yes, I'm sorry I interrupted you. You said you're 9 years old.
Yeah, I was 9. And it just, most kids, when they have nightmares at night, it's a fake monster. But for me, like, my friends were talking about night terrors. And I didn't realize I had them till a few weeks ago. But like for me, those night terrors were real, because when they happened, it was because I was actually being hurt. So I lived my nightmare until I was 15 and a half. And during that time, the church that we were going to was my uncle's church, who is spiritually abusive. So we were getting a lot of abuse around all this time. And then my grandmother died, and she was the only person that my dad let me get close to. She was a very godly woman who has a very similar story to me, but she was happy. You would never know. She was the happiest person in the world, and looked out for everyone else around her and was there for them. And so she died when I was 10, and that really hit me. That's when I remember the first time really working through God and starting to doubt him, and to starting to realize, like, I don't have a normal life, and I don't know why. Because when I got to about 12, I started realizing what was happening wasn't right. It was wrong. But like my dad would use things like, when I tried to start speaking out, he would say things like, the police will come and take your family away and it'll be your fault. Or he would tell me like it would be my fault if anything happened to the family, because without him we wouldn't be able to survive, which is not entirely wrong. He worked a very good job, but we lived below poverty level. It was really bad. So he wasn't wrong. And he was smart enough that if like my mom tried to leave, he would have gotten full custody of us kids and would have gotten everything, and she would have been left with nothing. So I just remember working through all that and starting to begin to doubt God. Like, why would God do this? Like, why is this happening? This isn't fair. Like, I'm 13 years old and I'm living pretty much in hell. And it was really hard because there was nothing we could do.
So did your mom know that this was going on?
No.
Okay.
She found out when I was 12, and removed me from the house because he always had an apartment. He never really ever lived with us. But she removed me from that situation. And then he did all the right things. He said the right stuff. He went to counseling with our pastor, and which was his brother, and did all the right things and convinced her that he had stopped and it was fine. But it had started up again, and she didn't find out again until I was 15 and a half, which is when everything finally came to a halt. And so, jump ahead a few years, we hit 15 and a half, and my dad has a job with Microsoft. He doesn't have a high school degree. He never graduated high school, doesn't have a college degree, and he's working at Microsoft. And which is actually, I kind of pity him for that, because he's so smart. God gave him brains, like, beyond what you can imagine. And it's kind of a shame that he completely threw his life away. Because at 15 and a half, it all came out. I don't remember how it all came out. I just remember my mom telling me I freaked out on the 4th of July that year and told a friend. And that friend ended up having to go to her parents, and then her parents went to my pastor, who was my uncle, and his wife. But it was completely God how it all came out, because how it all happened was it was a complete cut. My dad was completely cut out of my life. It wasn't like he couldn't get any custody at all of the kids. Like, God just cut him out, which was a miracle, because if he even could have a little bit, he would have ruined my mom. But God it came out the way it was supposed to come out, and it cut him out. He was arrested the same day, or that weekend or something. And so that was the next really hardest step of my life. Was I had severe Stockholm syndrome with him, and I knew what had happened was wrong, but I couldn't grasp how bad it was. I couldn't grasp the severity of it. What he would do was an almost daily thing from 8 years old to 15. So he was gone, and our life was tossed into chaos and confusion, and I mean, our daily life didn't change much. Going from not getting enough money to my mom not making enough never really affected us, which was kind of God preparing us for that, which was really good. So the next step was for me to testify. And they had me in to talk about what had happened, 2 days, 2 4-hour days of what happened.
You had to go back and tell the whole story.
Mm-hmm.
How was that for you? Because your dad was in there.
No, he was in jail at that point.
Okay, good.
My mom said the first time they scheduled for it, I freaked out and canceled. So I kind of have a lot of dark spots in my brain, but things I don't remember. So I don't remember freaking out and not talking the first time. But it was really hard because they had to get the details. Like, right. They had to get details of what happened so they could prosecute.
Sure.
And they said that they've never had to bring a minor in 2 times before. Within, I think it was like a couple of weeks of each other. So it was kind of really bad. I didn't realize that at the point. So we adjusted to our new life of figuring out what's going on. My brother and I suffered from pretty severe abuse as teenagers. I mean, teenage years are already hard enough in a normal family that loves God and raises their children right. So my poor mom, who has lived with my dad, now has to deal with 2 children who are severely abused and severely hurt and are lashing out at her because my dad has poisoned her against us. Bless my mom's heart, she's an angel. To live through that and then to suffer with us for so long of rebellion. My brother actually ended up turning to drugs and that sort of life, which is where I should have turned to. But because I was saved, God saved me at 5, I never could turn to that. Like, I always went back to this foundation of, okay, I'm fighting God and I'm mad at God and life isn't fair. But I don't know, there was always something there. Like, I could never rebel against him. I had my rebellious years, but I could never fully, like, do that. So I had to give detailed account of what happened. We worked out with the prosecutors and the lawyers and everybody out for a plea bargain where he would get so much time, no trial. It was kind of letting him off the hook. But the day of the plea, where we were going to settle the plea bargain, they pulled the plea and said, we're not doing this, we're forcing you to a trial. He claimed it was the lawyers, but I don't believe a word he says because he's a pathological liar. So at 16 years old, I had to testify against my dad in a court of law, which going into a court is hard enough when you're an adult. That going in at 16 years old it was terrifying. I was terrified.
Sure.
But like something that really helped me was Jeremiah 29:11, how God promises to give us a future and a hope, and how when we call upon him, he will answer us and come and help us. And I know it's directed towards Israel, and it's out of context for what it is, but it was just like I found it one day and it was really helpful because no 16-year-old should have to stand in a court of law and do this. The other thing that I was scared about was media. Because I was 16 years old, they couldn't have a closed door trial. I had hit the age of legal consent, which I still don't understand the system. 16, you can say yes to pretty much everything and they don't prosecute, or they treat you as an adult. But I mean, then there's stuff you can't do till you're 18. Still confuses me, and I'm going on 23. So they couldn't do a closed door trial, and they said there would probably be a media person or two. But in all the official documents, they only use my initials. The prosecutor only uses my initials. And we'll get to her. She's also sent from God. The story of God throughout this is actually quite amazing. But the hand of God came through, and we ended up next to the biggest trial in the state, murder trial. These teenage guys who were like 17 decided they wanted to know what it was like to kill somebody. So they went and they randomly just brutally murdered somebody. This mom and her daughter. And the mom threw herself on her daughter and saved the daughter's life, but ended up dying. My mom saw the husband and actually saw the guys who did it while I was testifying. And because of that, we were overshadowed, and the media didn't even come investigate us or think about us, which was like the hand of God, because I don't think I could have handled having it in the news whatsoever about me. So it was really long. I was 17 before everything was resolved, I think. Almost 18 before everything got officially resolved. Because we had to go through 2 different counties because we lived in 2 different places. Wow. So we didn't have to do a trial for the second one, but it was still a very long, drawn-out process. But he eventually, the jury believed me and my testimony. I had the longest testimony. I went from Monday afternoon till Tuesday after lunch for my testimony. Wow. I couldn't take any verse cards up there. They told me I couldn't take anything up there because then his lawyers could declare a mistrial for having cue cards or whatever. So I literally had to go up alone with nothing to help me. And he was sitting right there, which was probably the most terrifying moment of my life, was seeing him sit there. And that was terrifying. But the prosecutor she was amazing. She was very soft and loving and caring towards me, and helped me be able to talk about it. Because again, I had to go into detail again for the trial. So I had to relive everything again.
With him there.
With him sitting there, yeah.
Oh, I can't imagine.
And in preparation for the trial, I had to watch my own tapes of testimony from the year before. So I lived through this like 4 times before it was over. And so she was very loving and caring towards me, and she walked me through it. Literally figuratively took my hand and walked me through it. And even the judge he was sympathetic. Like, everybody was sympathetic towards me. And I refused to look at my dad. They told me, don't look at him. Choose not to let him intimidate you. And I got done with that, and I was able to sit through the rest of the trial, because as the victim, I got to sit through the trial, whereas pretty much nobody else could, because they were witnesses. If you're a witness, you're not actually allowed to sit in on a trial that you're witnessing for, but because I'm the victim, I got special rights. And when she got to my dad got up and testified. She cross-examined him, and in front of me and in front of the whole court, she tore him down on the cross-examination. It was like a lion attacking. And I remember that, and it was the first time I got to see him vulnerable. She attacked him. She refused to let him drag my mom down with him, which he tried to do. She refused to let him try to stick with the lie that I was lying about it all, and she attacked him and jumped at him with claws and everything. And it was a very rewarding moment. Like, my mom and I've talked about it, and she's like, I wish I could have been there. It was a very good moment. And then in the end, the jury said guilty, and he got sentenced for life and parole for life. So it was amazing how God worked out and gave me an amazing prosecutor who gave us justice. She not only gave me justice, but gave my whole family justice. Another way that God worked through it too was they put a clause in the sentencing stating that all 3 of my brothers are protected from him as well. My mom has to give official approval to their 25, which is unheard of. It's way past the age of consent for everything at 21. And I just found out in the last year that courts actually never do that. It's a special, I don't know, I can only say it was the hand of God, because she would have had to go to a whole nother separate court to do it. And that would have been a whole nother trial and a whole nother long process. And in the sentencing, they protected my brothers from him as well, which was just the hand of God, because she didn't think about getting his parental rights removed. Like, it happened so fast, and with so many different things going on, his rights never officially got removed, but God took away his rights technically through the courts protecting us that way.
Has he tried at all to connect with you, like send letters, or is he not allowed to do any of that at all?
That's not allowed. Gotcha. If he did that, he would end up in jail for life. Right. He wouldn't even get out for parole. There's no third party allowed. There's no nothing. If I want to talk to him, I have to go through a specialized thing that they have set up for victims and different things that they can do. But at this point, I don't really have any interest in communicating with him.
Yeah. Now, you said that the sentence is for life, but there is potential parole. Yeah.
So the way courts work and sentencings work is they have a minimum and a maximum years. So for this, it was, I think it was like 10 to like 100 years. And he got like 7 sentences. So the minimum he can get out would be, I think it's like 15 years from now, that he could potentially get out. But he has years over his head. So he has life over his head. So the minimum he can get out is the next 15 years, because it's been 8 years since it all came out and 6 years since he got sentenced. So he can get out in like 14 years, but he's going to be under parole for life. So he's always going to have to check in with a parole officer. He's going to have to register as a sexual offender. If he misses any of those, talks to a minor, tries to get a hold of my family, he's back in jail for life when the parole's taken away.
Wow.
Which is a blessing, because I found out this year that only like 2% of sexual predators actually get sentenced and put away. So.
I worked with a movie, and I worked with ICAC, which is International Crimes Against Children. I worked with them hand in hand, and there's only 8 to 12 in the actual country, and I worked alongside quite a few of them. That's what they do, is they track predators, and I was in that world for about a year because I actually played the part of a child predator in a movie.
Oh, wow.
And the movie's called Finding Faith, and so I had to kind of get into that world, and it is not a fun. It's so disturbing, and it is a what's the word I'm looking for? There's something mentally wrong with people that have that illness. They call it the itch, is what they call it, and that they can't get over that itch. And you know, you said in the beginning that, you know, your dad is, you know, he's messed up, and I am so very thankful that God protected you through all of this, and the fact that he can't even write to you, speak to you, do anything, even if he was to get out.
Yeah.
And that is awesome.
It's huge, because when we were seeing a counselor, she said based on his patterns, he was on his way to getting rid of me in the next few years. I mean, we can never officially for sure say, because, I mean, well, I'm here. But it wouldn't surprise me, like, if he had done that. So I'm like I said, like, it's God saved my life. But I mean, through it all, I was really fighting God. I was kind of very mad at God because it messed up my whole life. High school was not fun. I hated high school. I couldn't really relate to kids my age. I still can't relate to kids my age. When they complain about little things, I try really hard to be nice and godly to them, but I'm just like, okay, someone called you a name. You can get over it. You're fine. So high school is very hard. I hated high school. We lived with a single mom who was working 40 hours a week, raising 4 children, 16 and under. So like, we never got to do anything. I couldn't do the normal college or high school things. I couldn't do parties with my friends or after school things or fundraisers. It just made life very difficult. And so, like, after school, I would be the one responsible to watch my younger brothers because of it. And I love my brothers, don't get me wrong, but when you're a 17, 18-year-old girl who wants to go out with her friends and shop at the mall or just do normal teenage things and you're stuck with your brothers, it makes you very angry and resentful at everybody. Everybody. Poor people in my life. I was a very angry high schooler, teenager.
What was it like, and forgive me if this is a little too personal, but what was it like after this whole thing, and even now, of like boyfriends, relationships?
I've only had one. Part of my rebellious years, like you could say, it kind of, you mind if I launch into the next part of the story? My story is kind of in 2 parts. So I ran away to Pensacola Christian College for a year. I pulled a Jonah and I ran. That's how I tell people. I pulled a Jonah and I ran.
You weren't on a boat, were you?
No, but I took a plane. Could be worse.
Could be. Could have gotten thrown off the plane.
I could have got thrown off the plane, but God was good and didn't throw me off the plane. He just took away my health, but we'll get there. So I ran away to Pensacola. I was running away from my family. I was running away from my name. I thought maybe if I go down here, I can get away from everything that's happened to me. I can make me a new person. The young, naive person I was. And what I realized down there was, you can't run away from that. It's not possible to run away from that. It actually just made things worse. I was mad at God. I was mad at everybody. I was at this ridiculously conservative school, like ridiculous. We couldn't even wear pants off campus. Conservative. They would check our skirt lengths. I went from conservative to ultra conservative, which is never a good option. And that's where I got into the only relationship I have ever been in. And because I was so hurt and didn't know how to really relate, I was craving attention. And I got attention from, when I got the attention, I jumped at the chance. And it ended very badly. We ended up making decisions we shouldn't have. And I have regrets to this day from the relationship. But it taught me that I can't rely on guys. I can't turn to them for what I'm missing and for the void inside, because I made the bad decisions, and he ended up turning out to be a lot like my dad by the end. He was very controlling by the end, and was blaming me and throwing all the blame on me for the sin that we were in. When, yeah, it was my fault, but it was just as much his fault, and he was trying to tell me he wasn't at fault for it. So it was a very bad situation. It's the only relationship I've been in. I don't know, I guess I'm scared to get in another relationship. I just kind of was like, okay, God, you can have that part of my life. It's hard because I see all my friends in relationships, but I also know I'm not ready for it. I would easily make that mistake again. It just would be very easy to fall into that again.
Yeah. You know, the comforting thing that you can always fall back onto, and I know you know this, but the person that you need to have the biggest relationship with is our Heavenly Father.
Yeah. And
you know that the deeper that you get closer and closer and closer to Him, who is one that will never mislead you, who will never hurt you, who will never leave you, who will never lie to you, but the person that will always be there, even when you turn your back, He's still there.
Yeah.
And the closer that you get to Him, I can just see this, that the closer you get to Him, He's molding and He's shaping you. And little do you know, maybe, that there's someone else out there that God is molding and shaping. And as you get closer to Him, He's drawing someone else closer to Him. And then hopefully you two together one day. And if not, then, you know, I mean, because there's some people obviously out there that don't have that person out there, that God's called that life too. But no matter what, God's drawing you closer to Him. That was just a little side note there. I just felt like I'd say that.
Yeah, thank you. I'm slowly learning that. It's a hard thing for me to learn because I have trust issues with God.
Sure.
And it's very hard for me to trust Him. But we're getting there. God has worked in the last few weeks, actually, to show me exactly that He will be there and bless even when I don't. We're getting there. That's definitely coming. Like, the last few weeks, He has blessed over and abundantly, and I'm just like, I don't deserve this, and yet He's doing this. So I do have a happy ending, I promise. But this was the point in my life where God decided to take away my health. I started getting really sick and tired. I couldn't tell you why. I don't know why. It's not like He struck me down with anything. It was just, when He created me, He decided to create me with a timer in my body that just kind of went off with stress, and it made my body sick. So at the end of this, when I came back from Pensacola, I was so sick that I actually couldn't get off the couch. Doing simple household things would completely wipe me out for the whole day, which is unusual for me because I was a very active child. I would play soccer. I was very much into sports, very athletic. If people got sick in the house, I was the last one to get sick if I got sick. I never got sick as a kid, even in my early teen years. My whole family had the flu when I was 16 years old, and I never got it. They got it like 4 times, and I didn't get sick once. So this was very unusual for me. But this was kind of where God started turning me around because I had nothing. He literally, he reduced me to nothing. I was on the couch. I couldn't get off. I didn't know what was wrong with me. But it was really bad. So he came through and he gave me an amazing doctor that is really hard to get into. She literally had openings for new patients for 1 week. And that was when my mom was like, "You're going to call her." She's like, "You're going to call her." And I was like, she's like, "Did you call her yet?" And I was like, "No." She goes, you have to call her." So I was like, "Fine, I'll call her, whatever." And I mean, the opening was only days, I think. And God put me in there. And she was able to diagnose me and start figuring out what was wrong with me. But like, God just had to break me there. And I couldn't rely on anything. Like, being a very sporty person, I don't know if either of you two are, but you learn to kind of rely on yourself a little bit. Because you're like, I have strength. I can run 4 miles and I'm fine and I don't get sick. And when you get sick, your whole perspective changes because you can't do what you used to do. You can't, even now, like, I'm still exhausted. Doing this will knock me out. And you learn you can't do as much. You have to rely on God for that strength. And so he started teaching me what that was like and what it was like to be, he was kind of just finally like, "Okay, you know what? I'm done and you're going to learn." Because I can be a very thick-headed person and hit up against a wall a few times before I learn. So while we were at this time, my mom moved to a new church. We got out of the church that was spiritually hurting us. And they kind of took over where my dad left off. So like they controlled our lives for a little bit after that. And my mom went to this new church that my youngest brother, who turned 17 yesterday, he was only like, I don't know how old you are, in 5th or 6th grade, but he's like, "You need to meet my friend. You need to meet my friend." My mom's like, "No, I don't have time." He goes, No, you need to meet him. You need to meet him. You need to meet him. I want to go to his house. You need to meet his parents." So my mom was like, "Fine, well, whatever." So she finally met with him, and it was my current pastor and his wife back in 5th grade, like 10 years before or something. I don't even know. I'm bad at math. And the summer, or the January after my trial, back when I was 16, my mom broke her leg. Both bones in her legs, knocked her out for a couple months, on top of everything else. And this pastor, my first memory of this random pastor is it was in the middle of blizzard, kind of like today, really bad out, really snowy. And he came up from where he was 20 minutes from our house, picked up the younger boys, said, "I've got them for the weekend. You focus on your mom."
Wow.
Left me his phone number. I was like, I don't know who this guy is, but okay. So we finally started going to their church. And it was through this church that I'm at now that God started to show me what real love is. They welcomed us. They opened up their arms and they welcomed us in. We were beaten up. We were tired. We were bruised and hurt and bleeding, and they just opened up their arms for us. They enveloped us and said, "Let us help you. We want to help you." And they showed us what true Christianity is like. And they involved me. Like the first week, the pastor's like, "So you can play piano? Okay, let's get you on for next Sunday." I was like, what? So right away, like they involved me in ministry there. Like that's where I learned what real ministry is. Had me playing piano. Second weekend I was there.
That's awesome.
And the parents, like I didn't even know who these people were. And they're like, "Hey, do you want to come babysit our kids?" And I was like, sure. Okay. And so I get to their house and they're all like, "Oh, it's great. We're so happy you're here and we're excited." And I'm like, I still don't even know your names. Like, I don't even know who you are. But like, they just welcomed us and they showed us the love of God and what that is like. And we were so starved for it. We didn't know what the love of God was. And so they just opened up their hearts to us and they welcomed us in. And like the guys in the church stepped in as for my younger 2 brothers and like became father figures. My brother's now 17 and 18 and they do like they do offering. They do sound. They do the sound for the church. They pray in front of the church. They do the role of a man in a church. And they just welcomed him in and taught them, hey, let's get you in and doing ministry. Let's do this and that. And it was amazing to be able to go to a place where they love us and they care for us. And like now when I go home, all the little girls attack me. I almost fall over when I go into church on Sunday mornings because the little 3-year-old will come and like grab my knees, and then the teenage girls are like knocking me over. And just having that impact there of we're loved and we're cared for. Like that was the first time I realized that since my grandmother had died.
Well, and as much 10. As you needed that for them to give you that love, I'm sure that you needed to give that love, to them as well. Yeah, very much so. Like spring break is in less than a month, guys. I am going home to my girls. Right. So now, is this how Word of Life came about through this church?
Yes, through a friend that was going to this church. She had come to Word of Life, and a couple years ago, a missions conference. She was like, hey, at the height of all my health problems, very fatigued, very swollen, it was really bad. She's like, hey, you want to come to Word of Life? And I tried to use the cop-out of, well, let me talk to my mom and let me get permission from my mom, even though I'm like 19 years old and I don't actually need her permission. And Mom goes, oh yeah, no, you can go. I went, fine. Guess I'm going to this place called Word of Life up in the middle of nowhere. And it was great because when we got here, we walked in and it was the middle of one of the sessions. And like, I had never been surrounded by people who were like worshiping and wanted to be here and wanted to do this. And I was just like, who are these creeps? It was a little off-putting. And so God still had to do a lot on my heart to get me to come here. I was still very angry at him. I hadn't been able to forgive my dad yet. I was still fighting with a lot of anger and hurt and everything. And so he started working on me in that spring of working through my health problems and helping me get better and slowly showing me that I can trust him. And in, I think it was like June of that year, like I finally realized like I can't keep fighting this battle. I'm never going to win this battle. I have tried for so long and I can't win. And that's when like I finally gave up the battle and was like, okay, God, I guess you can have it because I'm too tired and sick to keep fighting this. And that's when like I started getting better, was the medicines finally kicked in, and just not fighting that battle anymore, not pushing against him, was when I finally started to get better physically. I'm still not there. I'm still very sick. But I am better than I was 2 years ago when I was fighting all this, and even last year. So then I came back at the end of August of the same year because my friend was working here for the summer, and we went to the island, took some of the girls to the island for the evening, and it was the campfire dedication service. And I had been kind of fighting about coming to Word of Life, and I was like, I'm like 21, 22, I'm going to be 22, going on 23, like, I'm going to be really old coming here, like, I'm going to be like a really old person compared to all these like 18-year-olds that are coming. And so I was kind of fighting it, and that was really my only argument. Like, it was weak. A very weak argument. And after the dedication, a friend of mine from here, who's actually on CCI now, he was like, we were talking to one of the girls, and he's like, hey, you should come. And she's like, I'll think about it. I was like, that would be really good. And he turns to me and goes, you should come. And I was like, oh no, I'm too old. And he goes, I have a friend who's 27. I was like, fine. And that's when I decided, I was like, okay. And I went and I applied the next day to come. And I called my mom right before I applied and was like, so I'm applying to Word of Life. Please don't be mad at me. And she's like, I have been putting that on your FAFSA paperwork for 6 years now, or however long she's been doing my FAFSA. I was like, oh, my mom wanted me to come here. Yeah. I was able to financially ready because she already thought ahead and did it back in January when I was staunch about not coming here.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, what happened, you said in the last couple of weeks, because now you fast forward, you're here at the Bible Institute. You've been here now second year, so you've been here for 2 years now.
Yep.
And so I'm itching to find out what happened in the last couple of weeks that God has done in your life.
Well, when I came back in January, all my health problems kind of hit me again. I was very exhausted and tired, and I still am. I got really sick, and I don't know why. Nothing was working. I was at my wit's end. I was like, I'm never going to get the medicine I need. My doctor's not coming through with the medicine that I need because I can't take pills. I have to find an alternative because my body I can't swallow pills due to the abuse. I can't. It's physically impossible. So we're trying to switch it all over, and we're trying to figure out what's going on, and she's not coming through, and I'm getting to the point where even my RA is like, are you okay? Talked about counseling, and I was like, I brought a note back from my doctor because I can't physically counsel. And I was talking to my RA about it, and she's like, yeah, if they gave you a hard time about it, they come to me, tell them to come to me because you can't do anything. So it was really hard, and I was really irritated. And just through a different series of events in the span of a week and a half, God sent my doctor, approved all my medicines, and sent them through to the pharmacies. Finally put me on thyroid medicine, and put that through to the pharmacy. That was my biggest struggle, was not getting the thyroid medicine. And this is a new medicine that we're trying to see what's wrong, because it tells my body it's fine, but I have all the symptoms of a bad thyroid. So she just put me on thyroid and said, that's it. We've been testing you for almost 3 years now. We know it's wrong. So finally got the thyroid, started taking the medicine in the span of a week. And I have psoriasis, and that I've had it since I was 10 years old. So I'm going on 13 years of having it, and it's very mentally debilitating because you can't really hide it. It's on your skin, and it's there, and it sheds, and it's just dry skin. It's completely harmless, but it's very mentally degrading, especially after having it for 13 years now. And we have been fighting the insurance company since last May to get on Humira. And the first time they put it through with this new insurance, it got approved. Complete miracle of God. Insurances are very picky. I mean, they don't want to pay for anything. I'm sure you understand fighting insurances and working through that. And it got approved first time through, for the first time in 9 months.
Wow.
Yeah. And this couple at the church that I'm at, they've adopted me as their granddaughter, and they have been helping me out financially. Wow. They're there for me. They've been helping me pay for things. And I do use my own money as much as I can, but I'm a sick college student. I don't have a lot. And they've just, for the first time, I have financial stability since, ever. Because they're like, no, use the card we gave you. If you need it, use it. Even if you don't need it, use it. They're like,
that's awesome.
You need to do that. And just God completely blessed above what I deserve, because I shouldn't be here. I should be on the streets doing drugs. I probably even shouldn't be alive because of everything. And I'm sitting here blessed so far abundantly that I can even imagine. My family is healing. I have been able to forgive my dad, and I don't even know when I forgave him. And it goes back to my youngest brother, who's 17. He, once upon a time reference, he has the heart of a truest believer, which anybody listening will understand the reference, but I don't know if you guys will. He's so pure. He trusts God unexplainably. I can't imagine how. And it's because he didn't get hardly anything. And he has a completely different view of God. He can view God as a father. He can view him as a provider. That's what he's grown up with, is God providing. And not to say he hasn't had his own struggles, but he believes that my dad could potentially be saved someday. I don't. I don't think so, but he does. And over Christmas, we had a situation come up, and I had expressed my anger about it and my unforgiveness of him at Christmas, and how I didn't want to forgive him, and I had said a couple times that it would just be easier if he was dead. And we looked over at my younger brother, and he's almost in tears, and we're like, what's wrong? And he's like, he's a human. He could be saved, and you want him dead. If he died, he could go to hell. And he's almost crying, and it hit me that even though I have been hurt severely by him, and my faith is a mustard seed. The verse I cling to is have faith like a mustard seed and you can move mountains. That's my verse sometimes. But my brother humanized him again, and every time I think about my dad, I think about him and my youngest brother, and how probably if my dad was to ever get saved, and it's a very big stretch, it will be because of my brother and his faith and prayer that God will save him. And I can't tell you when I forgave him. I can't tell you when the anger went away. I don't know when it went away. It was in the last month and a half. I can't tell you, but I'm not angry anymore. I'm not mad. I still have the results of what happened to me. I'm going to struggle with consequences of what has happened to me through what he did to me or my choices, but I'm not mad at him anymore. And I can't tell you why. I don't know. I'm just not anymore.
Maybe for someone that's listening that maybe is going through something like this, I can't relate. I'm not even going to try. Maybe there's something that you could say to someone that maybe is listening that is having issues within their home. We've had other guests on that have been abused, and they've never come out and said who it is. You're the first that has come out and said it's your dad. So maybe there's someone out there that's listening that you have a father that is doing something inappropriate. And maybe you're wondering, is it wrong? Is it right? There was one of the girls that we had on, she was being abused up into the age of 18, you to the age of 15. So a lot of times we think that it's little kids that don't know any better. Mm-hmm. But even when you get older, it's still a mental thing that goes on with you. So maybe you are 15, 16, 18 years old. Is it a thing, Abigail, that you don't want to say something to someone? Like it's because to me, let me say my way of thinking, okay? And I can't even have a leg to stand on. Mm-hmm. But my way of thinking is, I'm of age, I'm 15 years old. I'll just go say something to someone. And there it is. But I've heard so many other testimonies of just it's impossible to do that. It's so hard to do that. So what kind of advice could you give to someone right now that is struggling with that inside internally? They want to say something, but they feel trapped. What could you say to them?
That was one of my big struggles, was not talking to people even after the abuse stopped. Not talking to somebody was one of the worst decisions I made. It's not as easy as waltzing out of there and saying, "Oh, I'll just go talk to somebody." It's not that easy. But it's definitely worth it. Talking to somebody and finding somebody who can support you. You need that support. I needed the support of my friend. When I spoke out about it at 15, I stayed at my friend's house the whole weekend. We watched Mary Poppins and we ate junk food, and we literally could do whatever we wanted. The parents just kind of, within reason, obviously, but finding that support first. Even as abused, you still have people that you're friends with. You still have, you're going to have some sort of support, and getting yourself safe first is the step. Speaking out was the best choice of my life. And it's true. When you think of abuse, you think of little kids. When you watch it on TV, it's little kids. But it goes right up into the 20s. There are 20-year-olds who are being hurt. And it's the biggest part is the guilt, is you feel guilty for speaking because it will tear your family apart. It tore my family apart. And that's what my dad used against me. But in the end, God is going to use it for good. He says in Isaiah that no word comes back to him void. He uses everything and everyone. And like, just the hope that I have now, looking back on it 8 years ago, it's been 8 years this year of when I was released from it, and looking where I am now, it was the best decision. And it's hard. It's really hard. I was shaking when I told. I didn't speak in full sentences. I answered to the point. It's hard, but the freedom that you can get from that is amazing. God uses it, and he does give the strength. He gives that strength, and because I can't tell you how I did it. When you're a young teenager and you're already working through problems of social problems and media problems and cultural problems, and then on top of that you have a family member or someone close to you hurting you, you have no strength. You have no way of doing it, but God gives that strength. Like, I can't tell you how that strength comes. It's like someone that I look up to. Her name's Corrie ten Boom. She lived during the World War II. That's what it was, World War II. Her dad taught her that God gives you what you need when you need it. And he uses the analogy of a train. And when you're little, if you're going on let's modernize it, on a plane. If you're going to go on a plane, your parents don't hand you the ticket days in advance. You're little, you're a kid, even 20-year-olds, you'd lose it.
Right.
Like nowadays, we put it in our email so we don't lose it. Because, let's face it, we all lose stuff. But when you're little, your parents hand you the ticket right before you walk onto the plane. So you don't lose it. You have it when you need it. And that's what God does, is when you need it, it's there. And like when I had to walk up and testify against my father sitting in the courtroom, I don't remember it. Like, I remember bits and pieces, but the strength to stand up and walk up there was completely of God. Like, I was freaking out and shaking minutes before I walked up there. I was terrified. I wasn't even going to let anybody listen because I could choose to kick everyone except who was necessary out. And as soon as it was my turn to go up and do it, I walked up there. I wasn't shaking. I did it confidently. So don't be afraid to find your support. Like, find that support. Get to where you're safe. Go to a friend's house. Get to be where it's safe and stand up for yourself. It's okay to speak out and tell somebody what's wrong, because when I didn't, it hurt me more not telling anybody what happened to me. And even after it all came out, I had somebody in my life tell me that I couldn't talk to anyone about my story. I couldn't say anything to anybody. It was my story. It was a family matter. Keep your mouth shut. You're not allowed to talk about it. And that hurt me more. I literally have 9 months in my brain completely blacked out. I don't remember anything. So not talking about it is way worse than risking being like, it's way worse to yourself if you don't talk about it than finding a safe place and ensuring that you're safe and talking about it so they can't get to you.
And I want to expand on that a little bit more, Abigail, because what you just said, that family members coming to you and saying, hey, keep your mouth shut, I have heard that. We've heard that a lot now. That a lot of people seem to do that. We had one girl whose even parents said, "Hey, don't talk about this. Who your other family member did this to you." I believe it's we want to keep the family name, and we want to make sure that everybody is good. We don't want to be embarrassed.
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you, it's what you said a few minutes ago. You're going to have that guilty trip. Well, remember, and you know this too. It's not your fault. I mean, this is being done to you. And it's not your fault. So, the family is already screwed up. So by the time you get to say something, you need to say something. It's not your fault. Let it out. And you are so right. You need to go to someone that you trust, get with a family and a friend, absolutely, and share it. And share it.
Yeah. It's huge getting it out there. And like, that's why I don't use my family name. For me, and I would say if you can, just drop it. Drop the last name, because your name is not your identity. We find our identity in names. We always have. That's just, I don't really know why. It was probably because when God created Adam and Eve, he said, Adam means this and Eve means this. So it's kind of just like, oh, names mean something. If you look in history, people named people for specific reasons, like this name means this, so this is why they're getting named, or it's a family name, we're gonna throw this poor kid who's the sixth down the line and call him John Michael, I don't know, something the sixth. We find our identity in our name, and when you have been abused like that, the abuse is attached to the name, and I can't handle that. And like for me, dropping my last name and going by my middle name has dropped a weight off my shoulders, because you're not part of that. That's not who you are. It's who you are is found in Christ, and who you are is found in how he works through you. And like, just as simple as keeping it off anything that's not an official document. Like, my suite mate didn't even know my last name until like the other night. And that's because it's on my name tag for snow camp. It's just, when I write my name, I use my middle name. And just dropping that, because your identity is not in what happened to you. It's not in what's going on around you. It's in how God can save you. And dropping that. Tell somebody, get yourself out of there, and then drop your last name. Go by your middle name. Make up a last name. I went through that stage. I tried to fit my last name and tried to fit a different name in there. Like, do anything you can to remove that identity from yourself, because it will only keep you in bondage longer by allowing that there.
Abigail, if there's someone out there that's listening and feels very close to your story, maybe they don't have anyone that they can reach out to and say something to. They don't have that family or have that friend, like no one. Would you be okay with someone emailing us, and we won't look at it, we'll just send it straight to you? Would you be willing to read these emails that someone might send to you?
Yeah, I would love to help out. I'm tired of my story hurting me, and I am ready for it to start helping, because my story is a story of hope. There is hope to get out of a very bad place. I was in a place of a monster, and my monsters under the bed were real. And I know that around the world, the monsters are real. You said yourself that you tried to live it for a year and figure it out, and it was awful. Those monsters are real, but...
Well, let me restate that. I didn't live it for a year.
Okay, you didn't live it, but
I didn't do that. No. I just read books and had to get my mind into a character of sorts. But no.
that's living it.
Sure.
You had to experience that, and you're definitely not that type of person.
No.
Having heard you over the summer and been going to the same church with you, I know for sure that you're not. Make that clear from my end also. But monsters are real, and it's okay to be afraid of them. There's a reason why have emotions, and it's okay to be afraid of them, but it's also okay to stand up to them.
Sure.
And where I was 8 years ago and where I am now is I am not the same person. God brings people through, and everyone's story is different.
Sure.
The way that you're going to get out of it is totally different from the girl next to you. Sure, there'll be similar situations, but I know that realistically on this podcast, there's some of the girls on here, they're never going to be able to get the justice that I got. I just know statistically that's not possible. But it means that somewhere down the road, after God has saved you, and he will save you because he has promised that he will save you, you're going to be able to help somebody. It means that your story will reach out to girls who can't get that hope, who can't get that story of, yeah, my dad was thrown in jail because God provided that. I can't reach those girls some days because that's not my story. But mine is bad enough that I can still reach out to them and tell them that there is hope and that their story can be used for good to help somebody down the road.
If you would like to send an email to Abigail and share your story and talk with her, you can email us at podcast@wol.org. podcast@wol.org. You can just write in the subject line, "This is for Abigail's eyes only." Write that in there, and as soon as I see that or Taylor sees it, we will send it straight to her. Again, that is podcast@wol.org. Now let me let you know something, that if you do send the story, I don't want you to think that we're just going to read this or she will read this and just sit on it. If there is things there, we will have to say something. We will have to send that on. But she is a voice that will listen, eyes that will listen. And if that's your first way of getting your story out, then by all means, please send your story to us. Send us what's going on in your life. We want to help you. We really, really, really do. Abigail, I see you have the Bible out. You want to say something real quick?
I was kind of hoping to read the verses that got me through to give them one last hope.
Absolutely.
My life verses are cliche, but they have helped me through a lot and come back to still help me. And it's Jeremiah 29:11-14a. And it says, "For I know the thoughts that I think toward you, says the Lord, thoughts of peace and not of evil, to give you a future and a hope. Then you will call upon me and go and pray to me, and I will listen to you. And you will seek me and find me when you search with all your heart, and I will be found by you, says the Lord." It's a promise. God has promised that when he thinks of you, it's good, and it's always good. He has promised that you will have a future. And even though it doesn't look like it right now, I promise he does. Because I was texting with my mom recently, and it's been 8 years since this all happened. And I am sitting here at a Bible college. I have a future ahead of me. He has given me a hope that I didn't think I could ever have. Don't lose that hope, because it is there, and he has promised that to you.
Thanks for listening to the podcast. Word of Life creates faith-defining experiences that'll give students and families the chance to encounter God and grow in their spiritual walks. You can find out more about what Word of Life offers at wol.org. That's wol.org.